Well, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News. And look, Nala's with us in the form of Chewy tonight. Hi,
Hello.
Chewy. Last night in your little screen there was the dog. So I'm going from one ginge to another. Fantastic.
Oh, nice.
Hi, man.
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Yeah, I've had a restful couple of days doing literally nothing, and then a huge amount of panic tonight as we heard from tradespeople that we've been waiting on, that they were going to come around tomorrow morning to rip out our kitchen. Of course, if I'd known that, I would have been a lot busier over the past couple of days.
So when you're getting a new kitchen put in, and I have done that in the past, you basically got to pack your kitchen up like into banana boxes and store it out of the way. So
yeah, pretty much.
So you're basically packing up what an eighth of your house sort of thing in its entirety.
Yep, absolutely. And sorting out what we're going to do with the dog because she doesn't react well to people being in the house that aren't us.
Yeah.
I think we've got them put off till next week now. But yeah, that was a good moment tonight of like, oh shit. Am I going to be up till 3 o'clock in the morning packing up a kitchen?
Yeah, wow. Well, I on some level, on a selfish level, I'm glad you put them off because then you're here with us tonight, which is fantastic.
Yep, absolutely.
And lots of stuff to talk about tonight. We are going to be talking about our friend Karen Plunket at some stage. It's interesting. There's actually two issues surrounding Karen at the moment, but one of them involves the New Zealand school curriculum. And as you know, Chewy, and as people watching will know, I do like to have my ducks lined up. So I've actually been in contact with the ministry to get some clarity on what is in the curriculum and what is not. He did an interview today that I heard about teaching gender identity in schools, and had a mother on who was talking about all sorts of stuff to do with this and how the school. I wrote some quotes down. We probably won't do this tonight, but I'll give you a heads up. Maybe this will be tomorrow night. That the schools are teaching kids that they can change their bodies. The New Zealand curriculum has gender identity teaching. That the school is teaching children not to trust their parents. And Plunket described the article that this woman wrote as deeply, deeply concerning. At no point in the conversation did he go, we should probably fact check this. It was just
why would you?
All taken as gospel, all taken as accurate and the truth. And so I've had a bit of a look in the school curriculum, and I've looked in I guess I can show you actually, because we're not really going to do this today, but as a bit of an introduction for possibly tomorrow night. Maybe we'll do it because I want to have all the info properly, right? I want to make sure I'm not doing anything. What I did though was I went into the these are the achievement objectives in the school curriculum. It's all different levels, and this is the health and physical education curriculum. And I thought that's probably where it's going to be. All the way through, they have a section called personal identity, and no matter what level you're at no point does it start she was talking about a 10-year-old, so it's probably level 4. The outcomes for a personal identity is describe how social messages and stereotypes, including those in the media, can affect feelings of self-worth. Now, I'm not confident enough to say that there is nothing in there about gender identity or anything like that. And in fact, there was not a curriculum document made, but it was a, what would you call it? Like a guide. There was like a guide made. This guide here, let me show you. This guide here, which was a guide to LGBTIQA plus students. And obviously it's not part of the curriculum, but it is a guide, and I'm wondering if they're getting those confused. So until I have all the information, I'm not quite prepared to go down that rabbit hole. But it was particularly interesting hearing Karen Plunket interviewing this mother today, citing her as an expert, listening to her every word because it fitted his narrative, and going, that's true and that's a problem. And then unfortunately, when the mother kind of said, no, I've been treated very well, her response was like, well, gosh, yes, Isn't that lucky? You're the one example. So when the narrative didn't quite fit in with his, he was going off on how she's the exception, and the whole thing summarized with her saying they haven't actually made these decisions yet with the school. They're in a consultation period, so there's actually no decision being made. So it's So the thing for me,
moral panic, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's actually, you know what it is? It's critical race theory in America. Teaching our kids critical race theory when there's no children in an elementary, primary school being taught critical race theory. But what I thought about when I listened to that conversation was all the people who are now going to be phoning their schools, insisting that their children don't get taught gender.
Oh, God. Yeah, you can see it, can't you?
When they're not. Rob makes the most salient point the whole time. What generation of kids has trust in their parents? So anyway, listen, there's that, and there's also we played something last night, Chewy, and I said, I'm going to wait because I think Chewy's probably with us tomorrow night, if he deems to grace us with his gorgeous presence. And I thought, you and I have talked about Plunket before in the past, and here's the thing, it's like this idea of someone puts themselves on a pedestal, like Plunket has done by saying, we're the free speech channel, we're tolerant, whatever their saying is for their platform. And he has actively put himself on the pedestal, being the truth, the true response to the mainstream media. But then he doesn't seem to want hold himself accountable to the standards that even the mainstream media would adhere to, like being truthful. And when you're not truthful, even if it's a mistake, not backing down. We talked about that last night. We'll get to that before the end of the show. We're also going to have a look, perhaps the poll numbers from TVNZ that came out last night. They've had an obviously TVNZ's done this massive amount of polling, and they've released the data over 2 nights. Tonight, what they talked about is it favorability? Is that what it's called? Approval ratings, which is a bit weird. It's the approval ratings, which is like the plus minus, good job, bad job, and the difference is the approval ratings. And they're going around TVNZ at the moment saying it's a tie. But it's not really a tie at the moment between the leaders, but we'll look at that before the end of the hour. Do you have something you're desperate to share now, Chewy, for some reason? I see something highlighted in the chat.
Yeah. I think this might be in reference to Plunket. You've graduated to a creepy.
No, and he's told some of his people, I've seen the comments, that I'm obsessed with him, which on some level is probably accurate, because it's like watching a car crash. You just can't take your eyes off it,
but it's like someone having a car crash and then reversing into immediately another car crash and then getting out of that and then falling in a sewer. Like, it's like that.
Dumpster fires are fun to watch, eh? I mean, they're fun. Who doesn't like a good dumpster fire? So on some level,
someone running around with an armful of garbage that's on fire. He's going, look at the garbage that's on fire. And someone is going, well, put it down then. He goes, no, it's my garbage.
But the problem is, he's also told us that we're nasty, which I think is the cutest, most adorable response.
Isn't that Trump?
That he thinks we're nasty.
Nasty.
But the thing is, I mean, if you look through any of our tweets or anything like that, I don't think there's ever been. I mean, if you look at what the definition of nasty is, we don't think we've ever been. I mean, we've mocked and we've teased and we've, belittled him a little bit, but mostly we've just spoken out accurate statements. Like Mr. Plunket talked about Newshub doing a hit piece on him, aka a piece that doesn't paint me in the best light. So it's that
always
kind of
a hit piece, isn't it?
Yeah, I know.
Always a hit piece. It's always a false flag, and it's always projecting. It's so consistent.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll have a look at the story that we started last night that I held off for you, Chew Meister General, because I mean, if I'm being fair, let's forget we're talking about the platform, and Karen Plunket. If a person's going to put themselves out there as the truth teller, which is basically what he's done, then I would say you got to tell the truth, And I would say we all make mistakes, yeah. We all cite things incorrectly. We all get facts and figures wrong, but when we do that, we retract and we go, "Dudes, I was wrong," with that whole thing. But this truth teller doubles down on the inaccuracy. So it's an interesting little observation. But look, hey, where we're going to start, Chewy, and I actually want to give you a chance to respond because you went with me to last night. But this Heather Duplessis Allen Izzy Cook thing is continuing on. I've got some more things to talk to about that. But you have not had a chance to respond to this other than assuming you're still on Twitter. I know you get banned every 4th day. But other than your Twitter feed, is there anything you want to speak to before I show you a little bit about what's happened in the last 24 hours in this conversation that I don't not say we started last night, that's arrogant, but that we picked up on last night, and I want to pick up on some things 24 hours later. But I'll give you the floor, bro. Is there anything you want to pick up on with that whole situation first?
Now, we are, of course, talking about a grown-ass woman picking on a 16-year-old girl.
Grown-ass woman. Yep.
That is the topic of discussion, isn't it?
Yes.
Look, right from the get-go, it's just had this sort of energy. I was looking for the meme before because it's spot on. That one there.
We should improve. Yes.
Whenever the school strike for climate comes up, this is the whole thing, and this is what they got a 16-year-old girl on News Talk ZB, and just really ambushed her. Oh, is a trip to Fiji a good idea? And she went, no. And then they went, well, you went to Fiji with your parents. Yeah. At what point does a 16-year-old girl get a chance to say, no, you guys go to Fiji without me for a start?
Yeah.
You can participate in society and say that things can be better. And it's such an obvious thing that it's literally a meme, and Duplessis Allen just doesn't see that at all. Yeah, and it's just opened the gates for all of these right wingers to have, we talk about the internet pile-on, to pile on and cyberbully a 16-year-old girl. It's fucking weird.
Yeah. When you started talking about meme, I thought you were going to do this one, because I think this is the greatest thumbnail that's ever been produced in the history of the world, just between me and you.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good, eh? It's bang on. It's absolutely bang on. Look, I think, and I'm not going to go over what I talked about last night, because it's actually a clip that people can go and watch if they want. But the one point I just want to restate is, if you're a 16-year-old in 1981 protesting the Springbok tour, you don't have all the answers. You can have a general feel that you don't think apartheid's okay. You think Nelson Mandela should be freed. What's going on here? To then get nailed down by, a seasoned broadcaster and mocked and ridiculed is inappropriate. If you were a 16-year-old back in 1974 and you were out on the streets protesting the Vietnam War, you're not going to have all the answers. 16-year-olds, they're aspirational. They want to try on, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way, like it's not authentic, but they want to try on different things to see what fits. And this 16-year-old is doing some pretty amazing things, actually. The skill set that she's showing to organize this and get behind it and be, is pretty amazing. And she doesn't have all the answers. And because she doesn't have all the answers, as we keep saying, this grown-ass woman, this mother of one, this 37, 38-year-old journalist and broadcaster, thought that she would mock her mercilessly. And I actually think that that's fair.
The laugh, bro. It's the laugh.
Okay, let me play you something which is going to frustrate you. I did something this afternoon. Guess what I did? I took out the laughs. Would you like to hear the laughs that Heather Duplessis Allen?
Yep. The interview without the laughs.
Nope.
Oh, no.
So here is Heather Duplessis Allen. This is her reaction over about the last 60 seconds or so, maybe less than that, to a 16-year-old girl who wants to try and have a planet in 100 years' time, who actually is stating, whether you agree with her or not, who is stating that she wants, boomers, Gen Xers, millennials who are messing up the planet to be held accountable for it. And she wants a planet for her kids, right? And this is the response by a seasoned journalist and broadcaster.
You went to Fiji. Are you serious?
That's a very authentic.
Are you serious, Izzy?
I didn't have to do
We'll talk to you again and might get you back on the show.
And if anyone can hear that and still trying to defend, like what's happened in the last 24 hours, and I'm going to show you a few of them. What's happened in the last 24 hours is people have started to jump on the bandwagon debating climate change. You are missing the point. In fact, I did the prequel to this with George talking about the $5,000 that the council was asking these guys. And I kind of agree on some level that actually the $5,000 should be raised by the people who are marching, because if you took it to its extreme, what if someone wanted to march every single day of the year? Should the council have to fess up $5,000 every single time? There is a line in the sand somewhere. So I'm actually not someone who disagrees that maybe that this group was asking for more than was reasonable. Maybe. So I'm okay for the conversation. So, but to respond to a 16-year-old in that way, I'll show you what it reminded me of, right? And you'll like this. You ready for this, Joe? This is what it reminded me.
I will.
No.
Like
you will.
Whoa.
You will. Here we go. Can you see a similarity there at all?
Definitely, again, a natural and very human laugh there. I feel like that should be coming out of a doll on a tricycle trying to murder you.
Well, we've got Karen Plunket. I wonder if we've got Tucker Duplessis Allen now. I just wondered about that. Tucker Duplessis Allen.
Halloween. It is Halloween. So there is that. I think you're right though. When people are talking about this, you end up sort of gravitating towards, it's a discussion about the climate and the school strikes and stuff like that. It's actually not. That's not the debate that we're having. The debate that we're having is whether that interview was a good idea.
The debate that we're having is when Heather Duplessis Allen has a 16-year-old child who's passionate about someone, if her child was be interviewed by someone and be treated like that, would she be okay with it? If the answer to that is yes, then she shouldn't be a parent. Sorry, she shouldn't be a parent. So here's the thing that's happened, 100% because of Heather Duplessis Allen's conversation with Izzy Cook. Izzy Cook is now being bullied online. 100% because of that.
The right-wing internet hate machine.
And you go.
I mean, I've got a perfect example that popped up on my Facebook recommended today. One of my favorite human beings, Cameron Slater, a man that looks like he's always damp, and his horrible fucking website has done this. Now, the BFD is another sort of disgusting corner of New Zealand's political commentary sort of landscape. But here he's taken an image and literally very badly photoshopped it as well and done a whole big fucking article about how the 16-year-old shouldn't have an opinion because she can't stand up to, as I said, a grown-ass woman on one of New Zealand's biggest political commentary radio stations.
And look, that's a really important thing to say, that News Talk ZB is the biggest news media outlet in the country. They can only punch down because there's no one bigger than them. So they can only punch down, right? So let's be clear about that, because there's no other group that's bigger than them.
Like, he's saying here, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. That's definitely a comment that you'd say maybe about politics, like an adult politician. But to a 16-year-old saying that we should all do better, that's again a grown-ass man just shitting on a child.
Let me grab the screen back and I'll show you some of the things that have happened on my feeds today. And look, I want to kind of just echo. I put this tweet out today. I put my first ever broadcasting standards complaint in today. and this is the email, and I will read you the email shortly. And so this is the kind of response we're getting. She organised a school strike for climate change. The interview was great. It proved that the climate change protesters don't believe it's real either, ever since her family flew to Fiji. Very hypocritical, yada, yada, yada. Let me just see. You've got Cameron Slater there as well. If you can see something that ties all these bullies together. Right. New image there?
Ultra mega.
Here's one as well, referring to her as a little turd. Are we starting to get the vibe of what these people are about? Here's one as well. Perfectly reasonable questions, yada yada yada. Name is Patrick, unfortunately. There's no photo there, but we can get the vibe because of the name, you know. On my on my YouTube channel, there's a Charles, there's a Chris, there's a Will, there's Michael.
I see.
And I just thought it was kind of interesting. On another YouTube channel, there was a Rob with a pretty aggressive comment. Is there anything that ties all those complainants together that you can see attacking a 16-year-old girl, Joey? I mean, just as good. I mean, like, there may not be. I might be in my head, but is there anything that you can see that ties all of those people together?
Well, I can't see it, but I think the answer is penis.
Well, they are dicks. Maybe that's what it is. So it's
it's a bunch of grown men punching down on a teenage girl. Again, trying to do something good.
I'm not suggesting that it's only men that have made complaints, and my sample size is very small, but in my very small sample size, every person that used some kind of derogatory term, aggressive term, basically told her to pull her head in, was male. And I just think that is an interesting observation amongst what happened yesterday. And Jonty asks a good question, right?
Yep.
I don't know the answer to that question, Jonty, but I did know a couple of them certainly weren't New Zealand based, at least a couple of them. Remember, I've got a very small sample size, but there are definitely some people contributing commentary from the US and other places offshore. So now let me
a pack of bastards.
Yep, let me share this with you, right? And this is what I've done today. And I said last night, I'm not suggesting anyone else should do this because I don't believe in that whole kind of organized, pylons. If people want to make it, they can. I'd never done this before. So the tweet, if you're listening, says a copy of my first ever foray into the world of Broadcasting Standards Authority complaints is to first contact News Talk ZB and allow them to respond. And then I've attached a redacted copy of my email to ZB, which was very bizarre because I actually had to send it to a former colleague of mine. Lovely person who was just the point of contact. And so a person who I know, lovely person, point of contact, received an email from me saying official complaint, which was a bit bizarre. We'll get to more of that shortly. I'll read it to you, shall I? On Heather du Plessis-Allen's show at about 6:10 p.m. Friday, 23rd September 2022, I heard the host mock, bully, and demean an idealistic 16-year-old with aspirations of making the world a better place. It wasn't that HDPA didn't have the right to call out the guest on her apparent flying to Fiji hypocrisy. It was the manner in which she did it. I sit here today and wonder if du Plessis-Allen had been talking to an adult and caught that adult in a perceived hypocrisy. Would the mocking and uncontrollable laughter and demeaning have taken place? I suggest not. As per the BSA process, I must contact ZB first. This is the first time I've ever even considered making a BSA complaint, but in my opinion, the action towards Izzy were so egregious that it warrants a complaint. I think there are numerous areas where Heather du Plessis-Allen violated BSA standards with its interview, including but not only confined to fairness. Number one, whether the program would have left the audience with an unfairly negative impression of the individual. Number two, whether any critical comments were aimed at the participant. Number three, the vulnerability of the individual. Number four, individuals, and particularly children and young people featured in a program should not be exploited, humiliated, or unfairly identified. Another area of degradation, which is the BSA standard, the tone of the person making the comments, which would be the host. Because of Heather du Plessis-Allen's interview, a 16-year-old child from Wellington is now getting spammed all over Twitter, Facebook, and the internet in general. If ZB doesn't respond in some way to negate this, I just don't know what kind of organization it has become. Remember, I worked for them for 10 years, right? So I have a background knowledge for that statement. The actions of Heather Duplessis-Allen, in my opinion, were textbook bullying and are responsible for other bullying now happening. Yada, yada, yada. Don't know about the process. I'll wait to hear back from you. So that's what I sent into ZB today. And I sent it in. And as I said, I'm not a complainer. I've never done this before, but it was revolting and disgusting. And we talked about it last night. Since then, I've heard from some of my former colleagues at News Talk ZB who have told me, obviously, who are going to remain anonymous, who have told me things like News Talk ZB has lost its moral compass. News Talk ZB is something that I cannot listen to anymore. People who are actively still there say that they can't listen to their colleagues. So there is a change at News Talk ZB that even some people within News Talk ZB can see. And I mean, when I say I hope they sort their act out on a level of, you know, at some stage we may be competing with them. We're not now, obviously, because we're microscopically small. But at some stage, if they don't sort their shit out, it could be better for us. But actually, as a source of news and a reliable and a place that people rely on for news, they got to sort their shit out. They got to do better. Yep. And this is not an example of doing better.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine a station like ZB having a particular ideological bent. That's absolutely fine, but there's got to be fucking moral integrity standards, right? And I think this is just so egregious. Like this, I've listened to ZB and I've gone, I don't agree with that. I'm not listening to this anymore. But yeah, it's never prompted a response of like, that is literally beyond the pale. Like it is just straight up bullying. And we've got so much conversation about bullying at the moment. It's just everything seems meaner, doesn't it?
Yeah, and look, I mean, like I said, the complaint thing, people in the chat are saying, well done, well done. It's like, typically I'm not a complainer. I won't use your service anymore. So if I get bad service at a shop or a restaurant, I kind of go, oh, well, that was an experience. I won't be back. That's typically, I vote with my feet and with my dollars. Yeah. And I don't think I've ever in my life written in a complaint to anybody. I mean, I'm not very good at making black and white statements because maybe I have, but I certainly know that I've never made a complaint about a radio show. For someone who worked in the field for 20 plus years, it's you know, a bit like shitting in your own bed. Is that what you say? I don't know. Shitting in your own something or other. But because, you know, if that could end up, if I was to do some work in the future, that complaint could end up being held against me or being, you know, determining me getting or not getting work. Not that I think I will be or am actively looking for it, but you know what I'm saying? Stirring the pot could be detrimental to future work. But it's like, as I said, it's such an egregious action. It warranted something. And I don't know if anything will happen from it, but I just think that, again, if it was Heather Duplessis-Allen's child being spoken to like that, if it was Sean fucking Plunket's child being spoken to like that, who's been talking all about it over Twitter over the last few days, if it was anybody's child being spoken to like that, you would be ropeable. Now, I've got, my children are ideologues in some areas, and I disagree with them on stuff, but you know, and so I can imagine one of my children having a conversation with someone in the media and the media person kind of disagreeing with them and pointing out where they think they're wrong. But if that media person ever mocked, harassed, and demeaned one of my children, I don't quite, actually, I won't say publicly what I would do, but
it's fighting time. Well,
their guts, I have their guts for garters, as my parents used to say. I have their guts for garters. It's different.
You bring up Plunket. Now, this is an interesting distinction because I've noticed a lot of people kind of this really starting to notice what the platform's all about lately. But here's the key difference, right? ZB is a legitimate radio station with a complaints process. You can go to their website and they have a segment that says complaints, and you click on it and tells you the process. You send them a letter, you see what their response is. If it's unacceptable, you go to the BSA, right?
Yeah.
Now, I've seen so many people go, what do we do for the platform?
Yeah, there's nothing. Well, that's the same as us.
There's nothing. Yeah. And that's the thing. When we're talking about this legislation is that there's actually a giant hole in it at the moment. And that you can, as you love to say, get business mummy and daddy to bankroll something. Get an audience of fucking frothy idiots and say whatever you want. You can just go ham. And there's, you know, you can hear it and you can be offended. And there's literally nothing you can do about it And people have been falling into that trap of going, oh, well, it's Sean Plunket. That's a name that's been around for ages. It looks like a semi-professional operation, backwards desk, eBay sound tiles aside. And they go to the website or the Facebook group and they send a complaint. And then that just opens you up to on-air mockery again. It's just so outside of the realms of what people are used to dealing with.
Yeah.
Surely there must be an authority that I can bring this up with, and there isn't.
No, I mean, when it comes down to internet-based stuff like this, the reason we can say that we think what Heather Duplessis Allen did was a cunty thing to do is because there aren't any broadcasting standards authority. Now, so that has its upsides. You can just be more unique and authentic and say what you want, and the only way you can ever get basically pulled in is if you break the law, like if it was libel or if it was, I don't even know what the hate speech laws are, but whatever it was, if you broke the law, doesn't matter where you do it, you still break the law. But the flip side to this, Chewy, and people know this, and I've said this before, is that the actual BSA is a bit of a toothless monster.
Yeah.
So really the complaints, it doesn't do anything. It's not like they get fined. It's really just a governing body above the radio stations that they agree to have some kind of standard, but it doesn't do anything. It's not like they're going to impose a $35,000 fine on them or anything. It's really just a censure, a public censure, and it doesn't mean very much. Most radio broadcasters have had them, but I don't know. I was just ropeable. It's like hearing that laughter again. I still am pretty ropeable about the whole thing. I don't know. I guess maybe I'm being a bit precious. But I kind of, you might feel the same about comedy with this, Chewy, but it's like radio's in my blood. I love it. I love radio. I love good radio. It moves people. That's why they call it theater of the mind. Some of the experiences I've had on radio are the most emotional, spiritual, moving, enthusiastic ever, playing in that medium. And I guess it's like, and I didn't hand anybody anything because I was bottom of the totem pole when I was working at ZB, but you hand someone this thing and they treat it like it's a hooker out the back of a 7-Eleven. They treat it really badly, like the medium of radio I'm talking about. And it infuriates me. Like I used to, look, I'll be honest, I never got bitter, but I used to get frustrated the fuck out of me when at ZB, there was those of us who were working on the craft of talkback, and talkback is a different craft than journalism. And then we would see people come in and be given opportunities and stuff because some of the bosses there were star fucking. You get journalists off TVNZ come in and get all the prime slots for filling in over the Christmas holidays, and it's like, well, it was demoralizing. It's one of the reasons I left, and I actively left because I couldn't see a future for me there, and I didn't want to be a 50-year-old man doing overnights on ZB. Yep. So there maybe there is a bit of bitterness there, if I'm honest. Let's be honest and put it out there. But to hand this precious thing that used to belong to Larry Williams, who was a legend in New Zealand broadcasting, to someone to treat the medium like she treated it, to treat the medium as poorly as that, to shit all over the ethics and the morality and the importance of what that thing can be, it infuriates me.
That's a really weird comment that's popped up in the chat. Sorry. I think it's just spam. Very, very strange. Like I've mentioned this a couple of times. I went to study broadcasting, got into broadcasting. I had very much the same idealistic opinions of it, the power of it to reach out to shape people's opinions on things, whether it be musical or the politics of the day or just connecting communities and that sort of thing. And look, the reality of it when I got into it was very, very different. So I didn't last very long. But it is funny, like, how many times has the death of radio happened now? And even now, its biggest threat, its replacement is people doing podcasts, which is just radio on the internet. So, it's kind of what we're doing now. But yeah, it's because it's an old school thing, right? You kind of expect or hope for at least old school ethics. And I think that's what's pricking both of us on this, isn't it?
It's probably actually, look, this has turned into a bit of a counselling session for me, and I apologise about that. But it's probably also what infuriates me about Plunket. Like the way he handles interviews and speaks to people and stuff it's disgusting. It's revolting. It's disgusting. Unless he agrees with your narrative, then he sticks his nose firmly up your asshole and offers you a job, you know. But it's the worst of everything. It is a dumpster fire. It's like a dumpster fire inside a dumpster fire inside a dumpster fire, whilst the ground around the dumpster fire is on fire. You know, and look, maybe I should stop. Maybe I should get over that, because each to their own on some level. But radio is a beautiful medium. It changes people's lives. You know, the number of stories I used to get from people who would just listen to us doing talkback in the middle of the night, helping them through cancer and helping them when they were breastfeeding and all these sorts of things. You know, I was on air when the Christchurch earthquake, the first one, happened.
Oh, okay.
I was on air when the Twin Towers got crashed into. You know, I've been in some really big moments in radio, and yeah, I think what I've just said tonight, and I'm a bit of a stream of consciousness, think as I speak kind of person, but I feel like Heather Duplessis Allen, and on some level maybe Sean Plunket, but he's not doing radio, but certainly Heather Duplessis Allen has shat all over the beauty that is the medium of radio. And I maybe part of it is, and look, again, sorry for the counselling session, maybe part of it is I feel like I need to defend radio, because I hear someone abusing it. She's fucking abusing the medium I love. You know, she's like smacking it around, and she's abusing the medium, and it comes out in those conversations. And maybe that's why when I heard that conversation for the first time, I had a literal knot in my stomach of anger. And so maybe, if I'm being fair, it was in part to defend Izzy, the 16-year-old who had good intentions, but maybe in part of it was because I'm looking at this medium I love, who I've had a relationship with for a very long time, being absolutely shat on by some fuckwit, and turned into the worst it can be, as opposed to the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here endeth the sermon.
Cool. Christ, there's just so much shit stuff to talk about. At the moment,
fuck! I'm just looking at my other screen, and I'm looking at fucking Plunket's face, looking at me, going, "Do I really want to talk about this now?"
But
We're just done.
It's gone from, like, every now and then he does something despicable, and it just seems like this week he's been on an absolute tear.
All right, let's do this, because this is a part of what we're doing as well. It's a little bit like when Luxon lies, and he did the other day with the 46% of people at school. We will continue to call it out if he continues to lie. I think one of the things we do here, and if you're new to us and you don't know this, it's one of the things we do. We're possibly one of the only groups that do this, other than Media Watch and RNZ, is we commentate on the commentators. Like, we'll actively take apart what they've been saying, look at it, assess it, and, you know, Plunket gives us lots of fodder. So are we obsessed with him? I don't think obsessed is the right word. It's like, you know, I keep using sporting analogies. I was going to go, you keep kicking the ball to the person in the opposition who always knocks it on, because they keep fucking knocking it on. Then he gives it back, give you the ball back. You know, he fumbles constantly. And so it's a conversation. There's a new right-wing online group that's just started up. I'm sure we'll start looking at them as well. And if there are any others that choose to start up, we'll look at them as well. But at the moment,
oh my God, that's right. I read that article.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the fucking cheek of someone with a whole bunch of money going, there's not enough right-wing commentary in this country?
You know where you read
what paint are you huffing?
Yeah. All right, let's look at this. Let's look at this Karen SOB. So News Hub had a story up last night talking about there's one of the terror attack victims' sisters has called on politicians to stop going on Sean Plunkett's show. And the reason they've called on that is for two reasons. The first one is he thinks, and this is the place where first he was wrong. We all make mistakes, but when you won't back down from it, that then probably becomes a lie, right? And this is what he said of Brenton Tarrant.
And this supposedly will stop a repeat of the act of terror that Brenton Tarrant supposedly perpetrated. I'm just going to say Brenton Tarrant was not convicted of terrorism. He was convicted of mass murder.
That's wrong.
A royal inquiry found that he acted alone. He was not part of a terrorist group. He did not have a cohesive terrorist philosophy. He was a nutter, in short, with a gun.
So he was not convicted of terrorism. So here is the sentence, right? I'll read it out for you for people who aren't able to watch. On 27th of August 2020, the offender was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for each of the 51 murders. He was also sentenced to concurrent terms of 12 years imprisonment on the 40 charges of attempted murder. Ready for this? And life imprisonment on the charge of engaging in a terrorist act.
That means he's a convicted terrorist.
Correct. Now, you give Mr. Plunket a bit of a wide berth, anyone a bit of a wide berth, yeah? Because sometimes we speak incorrectly. We're not 100% sure of the information. We have to actually check ourselves before we wreck ourselves. But the thing with Mr. Plunket is he's basically doubled down on the man saying he's not a terrorist. Basically meaning he tries to fudge it by going, well, in my opinion, but let's get to the part of the story from News Hub where one of the victim's siblings is calling on politicians not to go on Sean Plunket's show. Now, Chewie, I think you were with us last week when we were talking about Luxon being on, and yep. I said on that night that I didn't think Luxon would go on again. It wasn't for this reason, but it was for other reasons. You might be surprised if you haven't seen this. Who is the one person who says I might have to reconsider going on? You might be surprised, but let's play it and see if you can pick up on that.
Aya Arumali's brother Hussein was killed in the terror attack.
I just hope politicians don't continue to fail my brother again and again by associating with entities like this or amplifying or enabling these kind of voices.
Police Minister Chris Hipkins has previously been on the show. News Hub told him what Plunket had said.
Would you go on a show again?
I don't agree with that assessment. I absolutely reject that assessment.
National leader Christopher Luxon was on the show the same day Plunket made the comments, not ruling out going on again.
I go on lots of different media platforms to talk to lots of different people.
Do other media platforms say that Brenton Tarrant is not a terrorist?
Not that I'm aware of.
Ex-leader David Seymour appeared on the show 1 minute and 20 seconds after Plunket made that comment and didn't call it out.
This was not a terror attack, it was mass murder.
Look, I don't know, you call it terrorism, call it mass murder. It's a terrible event.
But today?
With that information, I'd certainly reconsider it.
Surprised?
I am very surprised considering how much he dug in on not giving... Well, he took money for... Well, he got a donation from Tarrant, didn't he?
I have no idea. I don't know what.
Because I seem to remember Seymour copping a whole lot of flack because he didn't.
No, I don't recall that at all.
Return that money. I'm going to find that.
Check that out. Because speaking of fucking libel, Chewie.
Yeah.
Let's check that one out. Now there's a couple of things to be aware of, right? Like we've talked about News Talk ZB tonight, so let's talk about that. If one of their hosts said this. Like it's a multinational, it's owned by, shareholders, it's got dozens of people working for it, and one of their hosts had this position. And if you're asked, will you still go on News Talk ZB? I'd go, well, of course, because that's one entity. The platform is Sean Plunket, and Sean Plunket is the platform. I know there are other hosts, but it's his. So it's slightly different because he is the platform. So his opinion is not just like a host on a radio station. It is part of the owner, the managing director, the whatever it is. So it's different. And I said on Friday we should bring it up. I said it before these questions were being asked, that I don't know if Luxon would go on again, and maybe this is just more evidence for that. Plunkett spends half his time whinging that people like the guys from the disinformation group, is that what they're called, won't go on his show, and that Paula Penfold won't go on his show. And I think those people won't go on a show because he's an asshole. And I think you'll find that there'll be others in the future, like academics will stop going on his show on some level, not all of them, but some of them, because he's an asshole to them. It's my honest held belief that Karen Plunket is an asshole. And this might be a catalyst for some, like a politician makes an equation, yeah? Is this a net positive gain to go on here for the people I'm speaking to, or is it a net negative for the press that's going to, press that's going to be in? Am I going to lose people? And that will be quite a fine balance. And I wouldn't be surprised if politicians stopped going on unless they were the fringy type ones. Now, please, Joey, tell me about that claim you just made, because I don't want to be sued.
Yes, slightly wrong. It wasn't
Good.
Brenton Tarrant that got the donation from ACT, but it was someone that stated that he was going to destroy mosque after mosque until they take me out.
Thank you for clearing that up. I don't want our first lot of Patreon coming out on the 1st of October to be paying for a lawyer to write a letter back to David Seymour. Let's play the rest of the story, shall we? I'm going to steal the screen back off you. So we will say unequivocally that wasn't the case. He didn't receive money from Brenton Tarrant. Done.
When called out online, Plunket doubled down, tweeting, "Nutter with a gun, not a terrorist. Sad mofo, but lone wolf."
So he's doubled down now, right? I think that tweet might be gone as well, by the way. You could check that for me if you wanted to, Chewy.
Yeah, because I think I replied to it.
26th of the 9th, 2022, 6:26 p.m. You ever look for that while we keep playing? So he's doubled down on it once, not a terrorist. Even though he's been told on Twitter, look at the sentence. It says it in there.
Suggest you read manifesto. The terrorists' manifesto is banned. Objectionable.
Oh, we haven't said that as well. He suggested people read a banned illegal document, which is another interesting angle to take, I guess.
Material.
Politicians do what politicians do to get their engagements up. I mean, but a line has to be drawn somewhere.
Given the opportunity to defend or correct his comments, Plunket tripled down.
I think it'd be most accurate to call him a mass murderer.
But is he a terrorist?
I don't think he is primarily. No, I think he's
See, little move away. I don't think he is primarily. Little move away from it.
a sad and tragic individual who committed a heinous crime.
I'm not going to get into what I consider to be a misguided publicity stunt.
The Prime Minister refusing to engage and refusing to rule on whether her ministers should either.
Okay, Jenna, well, should the Prime Minister have been stronger there, do you think?
She's never been on the show and she probably never will go on it. But in the same week that Jacinda Ardern has been out on the world stage trumpeting her work around the Christchurch call, that call to action to combat dangerous disinformation online, to combat online extremism.
The call to action thing as well. Him and David Seymour went on and on and on and on and on and on and on about it. And how what it was basically Jacinda just doing a vanity project, and she's adding nothing to the world stage. And I'm paraphrasing, but this is what Seymour was saying as well, that she's basically using the deaths of 51 people to increase her own popularity and profile. And I'm like, but if we follow the path of this is going to achieve nothing, then no one should ever do anything. Like no one should ever do anything. If it's like, well, this is going to still continue, people will still continue to share objectionable shit. So you don't put it in place, because the reason you put laws in place is to not necessarily stop things, but is to have a structure around when people do those things as to what you can do. You know, because the speed zone's 100, it doesn't stop people going 120, but it gives the police and the justice system the ability to go, well, we've made a rule, seeing you've broken it, now we can do something with it. So laws are sort of to not necessarily stop people. You hope it does, but it also gives that structure around the broken law, the person or people or group, to give you a chance for recourse. So putting this Christchurch call stuff together, yes, people will still share objectionable stuff. But if you do nothing, then the rules will stay as they are. What don't we want to be able to have better repercussions for people doing that kind of stuff? Not fewer, not weaker repercussions. So it's a bizarre thing. This has only got 15 seconds to go. I'll just play the end of it.
She's not calling out this broadcaster here at home, openly questioning whether or not the Christchurch terrorist is in fact a terrorist. He was sentenced for terrorism. The judge labelled him a terrorist, a move that meant so much to the victims' families, and saying otherwise is just plain wrong. Politicians should proceed with caution here, and if they are to go on that show, be prepared to call them out.
Yep.
Right.
100%.
Over to you, Chewick. So that was actually a very good point you made at the end. The Prime Minister has been travelling the world talking about the Christchurch call. So why isn't she calling out a New Zealander here at home, poo-pooing the idea that this person is a terrorist? That's actually, I think it's a perfectly fine question. And I wonder if the Prime Minister isn't doing that because she thinks that better to giving him more press will give him more followers, will give him more audience. I don't know. Maybe there's a certain sector out there, if the Prime Minister says don't do it, they'll just run to doing it. So maybe that's the reason. But it's at least it's a fair question.
That's where I'm thinking it is. It's just like, why give him the traction? But yeah, I mean, when we're talking about Plunket and that sort of thing, like, I'm surprised that someone like Chris Hipkins has gone on a show. Like, you've got to go. Like, I think politicians should go on a variety of shows, right? You know, when they throw down and say, I'm not going to go on ZB or I'm not going to talk to Mike Hoskins. I was always a little bit like, well, yeah, Hoskins is a dickhead, but still, it's a big audience, you know, that sort of thing. Sean doesn't have that. There's no reason for anyone to deign to go on his little podcast. It's like Christopher Luxon's probably not going to be on our show. You know, Plunkett's a bigger name. He's an established veteran personality, right?
I also think that perhaps Chris Hipkins went on earlier on because it was just Sean Plunket used to be on Morning Report. It would be interesting to see if he'd go on now. I'm not saying he wouldn't, but certainly at the start there was a former RNZ morning host, you know, with a good reputation in broadcasting, who was starting up something new. Be interesting to see. I mean, that's why a lot of the academics would have gone on. And, you know, we've done this. We've unpacked a few of those, and it's not saying that no academics will go on from now on, but it is saying that fewer will than did, because people are starting to learn. He's burning bridges, and people are starting to learn what the actual product is.
I found the tweet, by the way. He hasn't backed down or retracted it in any way.
Well, I mean, give him credit for not backing it down, and that means he's more of a fucking moron than ever. But you know,
but I can also see a very clear, as the kids say, ratio there.
Right? Yeah.
One like on his comment, 56 comments, including mine. So yeah.
Literally a terrorist, convicted as terrorist, committed the dictionary definition of terrorism, and you seem to be assisting his aims by pointing people at his manifesto and downplaying his actions. I think Sean Plunket is actually a troll now.
Yeah,
like he's actually a troll, and you can just see. Have you watched sort of The Shadows? Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement. What We Do in the Shadows. Have you watched the series?
No.
Series is much better than the movie.
Clips.
Series is much better than the movie, because they had Monet. There's an energy vampire in it, and it's a hilarious character. A hilarious character who gets stronger and stronger the more energy he sucks off you. So his name's Colin, and he's the most boring character you've ever known. And he basically gets you into a corner and starts talking to you and making you more and more and more bored. And that's how he gets your energy. That's Sean Plunket when it comes to trolling.
Well, that's the next Photoshop. You realize that, don't you?
What, the energy vampire?
Is Sean Plunket the energy vampire?
Let's get to some comments, because we've got one more thing to do tonight, and we'll see what's been in there. You can jump in and look after those, bro.
Oh, yes. Yep. So comment here from Ro just came out to say that there's no value on going on the show, as haters are going to hate. Pointless waste of time and not worth the effort. That would be my professional advice to anybody thinking of going on Plunket.
What if you asked me on? What if you asked me to come on? Should I go on?
Yes, but you've got a plan. We've discussed this.
Start swearing.
Just swear like a sailor. Swear enough that your grandparents are going to come back and slap you silly with a jandal, because that's really going to, like, this whole thing with what Plunket's been on about the last couple of days just really shows, to me, crystallizes in my head that his backers, his good, upstanding Christian backers, are okay with everything he's doing as long as no one swears. That's the quality of the person that's backing him.
Someone has sent us an article, and I think the article, I haven't read it yet. If you're watching, whoever sent it to me, I just kind of saw it come up in my thing, but I think the article is talking about the funders. And I think it's basically saying why the funders to the platform have got it wrong. So we might have a look at that over the next couple of days. I haven't looked into it yet. I haven't had time today, but whoever sent me that message, thank you for that. And we will be certainly having a look at it.
Because there's a few people that have kind of rumbled who is funding him, and he has spoken about it, but we haven't really dipped into what they're about. So I'd love to get my teeth into that. Free Soul's got a great idea. Speak to Rayo. That'll get them going. So, yeah.
Some of the comments that are in here, I don't know. Here we go. we'll have a look at some of these as well. You can participate and still say things can be better. 100%. I felt Izzy was an amazing in the face of such jerkiness. Rob says even adults shouldn't be expected to have all the answers. David says, unfortunately, right-wing discontent generators don't care if their narrative is true with COVID disinformation. They don't care that it causes confusion, excess infections and suffering and actual deaths. Adam says there was only one child in the interval, to be honest. TBH, to be honest, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Jay says this kind of links into my suggestion last night about Heather Duplessis-Allen monstering her for being a girl, because this is the comment about all the boys. Certainly if Issy was a boy, the reaction from the gross right-wing men would be less vicious. Simon speaks of that. It says, I've noticed Caucasian white men as well. Can't speak to that, don't know. But yeah, appearance of. David says, if you have to make up a face or identity to say something online, don't say it. Nicola Willis, deputy leader of the National Party. David also says, NZME, Newstalk ZB, NZ Herald have platformed the same toxic commentators for years now. Free Soul says it's Mental Health Week, speaking of what happened to Izzy. And Stephen says, nice point. And that's pretty much the comments to this point.
Yep.
So, anything else you want to add to those two conversations so far? If we go have a look at this, what I find to be quite peculiar style of saying who's popular and who's not when it comes to politics.
Oh yeah, latest poll results, absolutely.
Well, the latest poll results, and we talked about this last night, and this actually echoes it a little bit. And I was wondering if National had crested, which is not a sexual position, as far as I know.
I was just going to say that sounds very, very sexual. No, I don't want to. No, I'm thinking of edging. I don't want to think about.
Oh, come on. And the last couple of polls, it's not a big sample size, have seemed to be, National either leveling off or dropping slightly, and Labor increasing slightly. Now, when I say slightly, I'm talking about like 1%, 2%. So it's within margin of error. So it's not a trend yet. But I do wonder if National has found its base, and they're going to just hover around that till the next election, and Labor will come up a few more points, and then we'll get that classic thing as we do every election, which is basically, ACT plus National 49%, Labor plus Greens 49%, Māori Party, New Zealand First, probably Destiny Church, just kidding. Balance of power comes from elsewhere sort of thing. So we'll see what happens with that. Now, the latest, this is from the last night's release, but it's new information. TVNZ has released the approval ratings of Jacinda Ardern and Christopher Luxon. Let's have a listen.
It's tough at the top, and two people are in line for the job.
You can clearly see that people were solidifying their views both on the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition in terms of where they may vote next year.
The election is completely unclear next year, that both leaders have work to do.
We asked, do you approve or disapprove of the way Jacinda Ardern is handling her job as Prime Minister? 53% approve of the job she's doing, 38% disapprove, the rest don't know.
So we talked about this last night with her actual ratings at about 30%, and I said that means 1 in 3 people are cool with Jacinda. Now, this would say 1 in 2 people approve of what she's doing. That's a massive percentage when you think parties will get kind of 35 to 45% of the vote. Labor won't get that. Labor won't get 45. They'll get 40. So that means there are lots of people who aren't Labor supporters. And you'd have to say who aren't Green supporters, because Labor plus the Greens at the moment is about mid-40s, who approve of the job that Jacinda Ardern is doing. Now, the reason I think that there's a massive flaw in this is just have a look at how they work out the approval rating, right? So 1 in 2, 53%. So she has a majority of people think she's doing a good job.
So 53 minus 38 gives her an approval rating of 15, the same number she got when we asked in January.
I think Angie Jacinda's doing a great job.
A lot of people are starting to just lose faith a little bit, feeling like their voices aren't being heard. I think she does really good on the soft things, but I'm not quite clear about her policies at the moment. I think there's a lot of spending going on, and I'm probably an undecided at the moment.
Jacinda Ardern has dropped from the lofty heights of the mid-70s 2 years ago.
It's been a tough few years, but I feel really...
But what they always forget to say there is, of course, it was the same as John Key after the Christchurch earthquakes. He was in the 70s as well. When you get that massive natural event or that massive time that the country has to pull together, the Prime Minister, whether it's National or Labour, gets a massive boost. And that's what happened. So I don't think they're saying this, but to kind of say, well, look, she's lost half of her support is sort of redundant, because that's what happens when you have a national emergency. The country rallies around the Prime Minister, whether they're red or blue. As I said, exactly the same numbers when John Key was the Prime Minister at the Christchurch quake. So we'll keep going and see.
Just before you do move on, just two things. First of all, that woman in the background, is lucky that John Key's not around anymore. That's all I'm going to say about that one.
That one there?
Yeah. And also, can I comment on the gentleman's excellent moustache?
Oh, no.
Look at that. He's bringing 70s back there. Good Lord.
He's a Top Gun fan, obviously.
Do you think there's a mullet? It's hard to tell. It's out of frame.
I don't know. No, I wouldn't say so.
I would hope so.
A little bit of shadow there.
Yeah,
maybe.
Party in the back.
Are these all the important comments you're bringing to the show tonight? Can I push play now?
Yeah, you may. Carry on.
Thank you.
Confident in the fact that we've maintained support at the level we have, and that I personally have too, given how tough it has been.
We also asked, do you approve or disapprove of the way Christopher Luxon is handling his job as the national leader? 46% approve of the job he's doing, 31% disapprove, and a big chunk don't know. 46 minus 31 also gives him an approval rating of...
So this is the thing where I think this is pretty flawed. They're saying it's neck and neck with their approval rating. Now, it's not a huge disparity, but the majority of people approve with Jacinda Ardern. He doesn't get... I think it's a better result for her. Now, I know that the approval rating is based on the win, the plus minus, but it seems if you're 46 minus 31, that's not as good as 53 minus 38, because that means if there was an election for president right now, based on do you approve, then Jacinda would win 53-46. So I don't think it's necessarily TVNZ saying it's a tie. I know that the approval rating number 15 is a tie. I don't think the result is necessarily the same. It might be a tie in the number, but it's not the same in the result.
It doesn't make any sense if they end up with the same approval rating. Your system's broken. Go back, try again.
Here's something that's interesting. Remember we talked about, I was wondering if National had crested and they were coming down a little bit. Chewy, this will make you happy, not based on your political ideology, well it might, but based on what you've been saying will happen to Mr. Luxon before the next election, because they do this as well. You're watching?
15. In January, he was on 22.
I'm new. I'm up against...
So he's -7 since January. Jacinda held her number. Just for those who don't know, Chewy thinks that Luxon will be gone before the next election. I don't. But, if your approval drops,
I'm going to be unbearably smug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a 14-year career politician.
Are you a likeable guy?
I think so, yeah. I think when people get to know me.
I think Luxon has had enough time in the job now that people feel like they know him.
So he's had enough time that people feel like they know him, which means his numbers are dropping.
And he's going down.
Yeah. I'm saying is that the reality? He's not likable. People have had enough time to figure out, so his numbers are dropping. Just thinking out loud there.
Making their views clear.
It perhaps reflects voters' sense that although Christopher Luxon is very good at voicing voters' concerns, what he's been weaker on is actually offering any concrete solutions to them.
Wellington voters are split.
Which is what we've been talking about the whole time. He's not saying you should elect us because, he's saying you should get rid of them because, and that's basically what the commentator just said.
Seems to be playing catch up a bit.
I think he seems
Ginger!
More likeable than Crusher Collins.
Well, that would be hard.
For comparison, Joe Biden's latest approval rating is -12, and the Australian Prime Minister is on 26.
So then again, it's the cycle. He's just been elected. He's popular. What is he going to be in 2 years' time? Not 26. So I think Stephen actually makes a very good point. They could have the same results with 16 minus 1. Yeah, bad maths. So would that be the same if someone was 16 and 1 versus 53 and 38?
It's a nonsensical system. And I've always had a dislike of say, the preferred prime minister poll, because we don't vote for a prime minister. We vote for a party. It's the only thing that matters.
I don't know if I agree with you on that, because I think so often people will go, so as the prime minister goes, so goes the party. I mean, I hear what you're saying. We do. I mean, we actually, our system is actually to vote for a party. But I think, that's the whole John Key. I'd have a beer with John Key, so I'm going to vote for National. So, I mean, I know you are correct. Let me say it that way. You are correct in practice, but I wonder if people look at the leader and go, that's why I'm going to vote, because the leader really has to be.
I think you're right in that regard. and people do. You use the leader as the figurehead of your entire party for good or ill. Now, is that a clever way to vote? No, but there are people that walk into the voting booth having no idea who they're voting for and just think back to the vibe of the leader.
Yeah,
and literally go, yeah, I like Jacinda more than the other guy, or
It's one of the reasons I've always thought that you shouldn't be able to just put a new prime minister in place because one steps down. Because let's be honest, people will be voting for Labour with Jacinda Ardern as the prime minister. They'll be voting for National with Christopher Luxon as the prime minister. If Jacinda Ardern got in, won the election, and then the day after she resigned, then New Zealand's left with a prime minister that they didn't really vote for, although we voted for the party, but we voted for the party as it was led by Jacinda Ardern. And I really honestly believe that you, obviously in opposition, it doesn't matter, but if you're the government, you shouldn't be able to just replace the leader and give yourself a new prime minister, because that's not what the people have voted for. You can have some kind of interim where if it was in 6 months of the election, maybe it'll be fine. But I think that if a ruling party, if a government changes its leader, i.e. its prime minister, then there should be an election. That's just my personal view.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, I agree.
Well, here we are. Is there anything we want to get out there with the chat before we go? We're about to start wrapping up, Chewy, which means we'll be finished in about 35 minutes from now.
Rob Burney here says you can make statistics say whatever you want.
What is it?
And
lies and statistics. Is that the saying? Lies or something? Damn lies and statistics.
And again, like people say this when your party has a bad poll. They don't say it when your party has a good poll. But the only poll that counts is election day. I thought you were going to say the only poll that counts is the stripper poll. That's what I thought you were going to say. I have never heard a serious political commentator suggest that is true, but maybe it is. But yeah, I mean, this is the whole thing. We're so far out.
Yeah.
And we're going to see more and more of these polls. And every time that there's a change, it's going to be hyped up and that sort of thing. People are going to stay on message. People are going to keep questioning what either side is saying, really, and hold people to their promises. Same old stuff, doesn't change.
Yeah. Same shit, different election cycle.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm good to go. Just looking at the chats in there, see if there's anything we want to pass on. Remember as well, we have our daily audio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. We're on, actually, I don't know if we are on Rover anymore because we changed our feed. I probably should talk to them about that. Some other places as well. Just search for hashtag BHN or Big Hairy News. It's basically just an audio version of what you're hearing tonight, which is why you'll hear me say when you lovely people are watching, if you're just listening, this is what the chart says. It's for the people who are listening to the audio podcast. That's why we do it. And also remember, if you want to get involved, in about 3 days, we'll be having our first Patreon go out. People want to get involved, patreon.com. Shall I bring it up and show people? Patreon.com. And if you are if you are a patron, I'm thinking this weekend we might do a members only kind of hangout, because it's one of the levels that we can do members only hangouts for a little while. So maybe I'm just needing to work out how it all sort of works. I'm a little bit of a moron when it comes to that. But if you want to get involved, if you're enjoying what we're doing and you want to support us, because we haven't got our $3 million business mummy or daddy yet, working on it, but yet, like I buy a lotto ticket every week, so we're working on it. Then I become the daddy.
God, I hope we can find a rich family that don't pay as much attention. That is great.
So patreon.com/Big Hairy News. There are levels between $5 all the way up to $250 a month. There is t-shirts and caps, and there is monthly newsletters, which I'm going to make Chewy write this month. He doesn't know that yet. There are Q&As with the host or hosts. There are even, for the $250 a month ones, there are even private phone calls with one of the hosts. Again, that'll be George. No, whoever you want to talk to. And so you can come and get involved and help us, as it says down the bottom there, continue to make independent news, which is what we're doing at the moment. So we can come here and shit all over the non-independent news.
Yeah,
all
take
right.
that.
Yeah, yeah. So thanks for being with us tonight. We are very good to. Oh, what happened there?
No idea.
Did you bring that up? No. There we go. All right. We'll be back in tomorrow night from 10 p.m. Remember, next week I'm away. We've been going for, I think we're at about 140 episodes, and I've worked every single one of them. So that's 25, 26, probably 6 months. Actually, I should check the date. Maybe the date is. I actually feel like I actually think we started on the 28th of the month because it was one day before the end of the month. It might be our 6-month anniversary today. Shall I have a look at that? We've got time for this. Have a look. It might literally be the 6-month anniversary today. Go to DOC, go to playlists, go to Big Hairy News playlist, and scroll. Just look after yourselves. Just amuse yourselves. Chewy will tell you a joke now. Do you get that, Chewy? As a stand-up comedian, do you go, tell me a joke then?
Oh, yes, and it's the fucking worst because I don't have short jokes. I have long stories. Yeah. No, I don't have a joke.
I'm close.
Not even terrible dad jokes.
Not even terrible dad jokes. The problem here is, what was the first episode? It was probably that one. What was the date on it? The date on it.
Yeah, Adam's asking if we could link the first episode. It definitely be
February 28th. February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. Oh, is that 7 months? We've gone past 6 months. Oh, so this is our 7-month anniversary. Doing it. Look at this. This one didn't even have this thing. Alrighty, mighty. Here we go. It's Big Hairy News, and we are joined by Jeremy Elwood. Jeremy, good morning. Look at that. Sir. Oh, that's because I said good morning because it was 11 o'clock in the morning at that time.
We're rekindling
something that's right.
gone by. Yeah, it does feel kind of familiar, doesn't it? Yeah.
So thank you, people who are joining us. This is the first of something we're trying to do. Okay, so that means we've been doing for we've been going for 7 months, and look at the difference. No chats.
You put a shelf up. You shrunk.
Yeah, I put a shelf up. I have shrunk a little bit, haven't I?
Yeah.
I wonder what I am. I'm approaching 40 kilos, actually. I'm at about 37.5, 38 kilos I've lost. So, yeah. I'm looking forward to Christmas Day where I'm going to put at least 6 kilos on in one day. That's my objective. Okay, let's so it's our 7th month anniversary today. Happy anniversary, Chewy, for 7 months. I think that's diamond. So I think I think the 7-month anniversary is Patreon. So yeah, anyway, long story short, Chewy's just dropped out. It's been, oh gosh, he's coming back. This is like my sex life. Gone back. This is
I found the maximum amount of tabs.
Very good. This is 7 months, me working every single night. I'm taking next week off. I'm going to make some best ofs. I don't know if Chewy and George are going to do anything. They might not. We haven't decided that yet. So I won't be here next week. I will be away for the week and then back again the following week, funnily enough, I think. Some interesting meetings set up when I go to Auckland. Say no more, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But yeah, so that's the situation for next week anyway. Look, as I said, we're getting our 35-minute wrap up. We've been 8 already, so we're going to go now. Thanks for being with us tonight. Be safe, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night from 10 p.m. Hooroo.